Hello my friends, Paul here in the RoJoBe Music Workshop, and welcome to part 7 of the Handmade electric bass guitar project. Okay, so in the previous episode, which was quite a while ago for me, probably 4 or 5 days ago, I had finished shaping and contouring and beveling the edges of the body of the guitar, and giving it a fairly good or a very good sanding all over. Spent several hours actually doing the beveling of the edges and you know the contours and all the sanding. I'd spent quite a few hours on that. Obviously I hadn't recorded that because you know, it takes up way too much footage. It's not interesting to watch. It's dirty, noisy, messy, and kind of boring. I hate sanding, but I do like the result, the end results. So then I went on to covering the entire body with filler, and you know, because when I made my electric guitar, I realised when I was halfway through painting it that's what I should have done with that, because this bass wood is quite good quality, but it's very porous. So you know, if you're doing something like guitars, you need to coat the whole thing in filler before painting it. So I made the mistake on the electric guitar, and for this bass I've decided I'm gonna, you know, or I had coated the whole thing in filler. And I have since spent many more hours sanding all of that back. And I'm going to show you how it looks now. And also I've gone ahead and I've cut all of the body cavities as well. So before we have a closer look at the filler, so we've got the neck pocket cavity already there. We've got the cavity for the neck humbucker, the bridge humbucker, and the control plate. So all of those, all of the cavities have been cut out, and I've also got masking tape in all of them. It's all masked off, ready to paint really. And you know, you can probably see a few bits and pieces here and there where I've had to, you know, go over with filler again. You know, where some of the edges were a little bit where there was like little divots. But if I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but we have a close look. I don't know if you can see it or not, but the you know, the grain and all of the gaps, you can probably see a few white flecks here and there, which is the filler. Yeah, I really don't know how well you can see that, but all over the body of this, you know, where I put filler all over it and I've sanded it all back, you can see white flecks all over it where it's, you know, the filler has gone into the grain, into the little gaps in the grain, which just reiterates to me how much I needed to do that. And like I said, you can't really see it too well, but to the naked eye you can see literally hundreds of little white flecks. And I have sanded it smooth. At the moment it's sanded to about 400 or 600. And yeah, like I said, I've also, you know, put all of the body cavities in now, and the, you know, the hole for the jack there. And I don't know if you can see it or not. No, because it's all underneath the masking tape, but I've drilled the holes for the wires as well. So all of that is done now. So we've got the control panel, the 2 humbuckers, and the holes drilled through for the wires. So this is almost ready for paint. As I said, I've masked up all of the cavities. It's just got to have a final sanding prior to painting. But before I do that, there's something else I want to show you. So you may remember also in the previous episode, I basically finished the shaping and everything of the pickguard, and I screwed it to a solid piece of board prior to doing any of the painting. And I explained that the reason I did that is because it's so thin, it's only like 2mm thick. Doing the painting, whether you spray paint or you know, hand paint, brush on, whatever, the wood is likely to warp. So I screwed it to that board using all of the, you know, the screw holes that I'm going to be using to attach it to the guitar, to screw it to that board so that it didn't warp while painting, and it did work really well. So I'm going to show you that. That's moved on a little bit. So this is the substantial piece of board that I attached this thing to, and it is 40mm thick. Now I've got to be careful because this isn't quite dry yet, but dun, dun, dun. Yeah, so I started with 2 pretty thick coats of grey primer, let that dry overnight, and then put 3 thick coats of black on. Then, as you can see, I laser engraved a cobweb or spider web design on it. Now, you can probably see where the edge of the pickguard is, and that most of this here is not even on it. And at the bottom we've got, you know, a fair bit of gap there. Now, believe it or not, that's deliberate. That's exactly how I wanted to do it. So I didn't necessarily want the whole thing covered, and obviously because of the shape of it and everything else, you do end up losing most of that. And arguably the centre of the cobweb is the most important part, but I wanted it fairly subtle, so you know, it's most of the pickguard has it on, but you see that wing there doesn't have it on. But that's exactly the finish I was looking for. So I've engraved that on there, and it's had 2 coats of grey primer, then 3 coats of black, then I did the laser engraving, then 4 coats, fairly thick again, of lacquer. And as I said, it's not set yet, it's not dry. This is going to need 2 weeks to cure properly. And so will the body of the guitar once I end up painting that. But you know, I just wanted to get this finished. So before I do the sanding on this guitar, I'm going to put this back in the back room because it's still tacky and I don't want all the sawdust sticking to it because it will ruin it. So I'm just going to put this away first. Okay, so that's in the back room, out of the way. And what I have to do now is finish the sanding on this guitar, ready for paint. So as I said, I've already sanded up to 600 grit. I've got some 800 here and some 1000. I'm not sure if I'll need to do the 1000. I'll have to see once I've gone over with 800 if I think that's going to be good enough. So, you know, it's all level. There's no divots or bumps or anything anywhere. It's just final sanding, as I said, to get ready for painting. Obviously, the first part will be grey primer. So exactly the same as I did the pickguard, but with the pickguard, I was able to spray paint that lying flat like this. That's not going to be how I do this body. This is going to be hanging up on a hook and paint it that way. So when you paint something that's hanging vertically, you know, you've got to be careful not to put the paint on too thick because it will run. Anyone who's done any kind of spray painting knows what I'm talking about. I mean, you know, when you spray paint cars, you can't have every panel lying flat. It's, you know, most of it is vertical. So you've got to, you know, apply the paint in multiple thin coats. And it's going to be the same with this. But, you know, I mean, I've done them before, So I did my my other guitar, the electric guitar. The actual painting itself turned out all right, just fine. So providing I'm careful and don't try and apply it on too thick. I mean the primer I'll probably do 3 or 4 coats, and then I'm going to paint this white. It's probably going to have 5 or 6 coats, I would think. And then the lacquer, probably about the same, 4 or 5, maybe 6 coats of that as well, but thin. Applying it thinly and gradually. The problem with me is I'm not very patient. With things like that, I do get a bit impatient with it, but you can't rush it. You can't, because it will just be completely ruined. So, I think that's going to be all right for painting. I won't need to go to 1000 grit. 800 is fine enough grit. Just going to go over it one more time. So, we're kind of getting towards the later stages of this. The problem is, once I've painted it, as I said, I've got to leave it to cure for about 2 weeks before I start working on it. I mean, like I said, I am impatient. I don't normally do that, and I often mess it up. So this time I am going to leave it for a full minimum 2 weeks to allow the paint and the lacquer to cure properly before I do the final assembly. Right, let me just go around all of the edges now. That should be good enough now for painting. Yeah, that's going to be absolutely fine for painting now. I'll do a little bit more sanding off camera, and then it's going to get the first couple of layers of grey primer, and at that stage I will then be able to tell if there are still any bits and pieces here and there that I need to fill again. I'm sure there will be a few little bits and pieces here and there. Once you have the primer on, it's actually much easier to see any bits that you've missed, and you can put the filler over the primer, no problem, and then sand it and another coat of primer. So once I've done, actually I'm going to do 2 coats of primer. So I'm going to do a very, very light coat first of all, and then another pretty light coat so that it's fully covered. And then, like I said, I'll be able to see if there's any bits that I've missed with filling and need to do again, and then once that's done, I can then start to paint it properly. So I'm going to finish the sanding, which I love so much, off camera, get a couple of coats of primer on it, and then we'll see where we are from there. And that will be part 8. Okay, so in the meantime, please look after yourselves, look after each other. We will see you soon. Peace out.